Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, July 27th special meeting of the Placer County Board of Supervisors. We will begin with our flag salute led by our CEO, Todd Leopold.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. We are going to have the clerk read the procedures for just public participation. And right before she does that, we want to say thank you to the folks. We primarily have items about Tahoe, today's meeting, and some tomorrow. We were supposed to be in Lake Tahoe to hold our meeting in public, and we were hoping to have in-person participation, but unfortunately circumstances don't allow for us to do that today. But we appreciate those of you who have items on the agenda who are going to call in, or a few people presenting in person. So with that, Megan, if you would read, we're changing it up a little bit. So we want to make sure people know how they can participate, because we are going to allow you to call in via Zoom, but not with a regular telephone call.
In order to protect the public health and the safety of our Placer County citizens, the public comment for the Board of Supervisors meeting will be offered through a remote call-in line or virtually through a Zoom meeting. If you would like to give public comment on an item, please use the raise hand feature in the Zoom window to queue for public comment. Do not speak or turn on your video until you have been called on by the clerk to give your comments. Citizens who wish to comment telephonically may do so through Zoom by pressing the *9 to raise their hand, or by signing up for a callback at 530-886-1800. Public comment will be opened for each agenda item, so please call to sign up prior to when the chair announces the item.
Thank you, Megan. We will jump right into it, and we have our 1 o'clock timed item, which is our North Lake Tahoe Resort Association COVID response update. Hi, Erin.
Hello, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Erin Casey here with the County Executive Office. Happy to be here in Tahoe today to present to you this item. Introduce this item. As you all know, COVID response has required a fair amount of coordination, and in order to be successful there, partnerships have been absolutely key. Under the leadership of your board, and in particular that of Supervisor Gustafson, we have worked diligently to develop those partnerships. Those partnerships have in fact coalesced in order to support businesses, residents, and the broader North Lake Tahoe community. From county staff, including several within our Economic Development Department, Sherry Conway and her team, to Jane Christensen and her team, including Marinda Gleck, our Public Information Office, Stephanie Herrera, and many other county staff, to our partnerships with several organizations in North Lake Tahoe, including the public utility districts, business associations, chambers of commerce, and many others. The partnership and the level of coordination in Tahoe has been absolutely phenomenal. It really has been the privilege and the pleasure of my pleasure to be a part of this. It's been the opportunity of my career, really, to be a part of such a strong group of partners in our community. And I really believe that the foundation to move forward is there and solid into the future. Now, specifically, I'm here to introduce our key and primary partner in achieving all of this work in the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association. I can't tell you how many phone calls I've been in with the two individuals who are here to present today, Jeff Hintz and Liz Bowling, working weekends, working late into the evening, texting each other, sending emails, coordinating a variety of things. It's really, the level of dedication has been really inspiring and greatly appreciated, certainly by me and other members of the community. So with that, I'm quite honored to be introducing Jeffrey Hintz, the CEO of the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association, and Liz Bowling, the Director of Communications.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Appreciate so much the opportunity to speak to you today. We're hoping to have you in Tahoe, but we know that will be coming soon, hopefully in the very, very near future. We're going to kick it off today to talk a little bit about our COVID response and communications program that we've worked so closely with Placer County, Supervisor Gustafson, all of you, and Erin Casey, who's done an amazing job working with us. Hopefully you all can hear me okay? Okay, I'm going to do my best to. enunciate through this mask. First presentation with a mask on, so wish me luck, please. If I start getting wobbly. So I take it I right-click to go forward, correct? I'm going to give it a shot. There we go. Wonderful. You know, as both a destination marketing and a destination management organization, North Lake Tahoe Resort Association, our team has been focused on communications on both sides of the spectrum as we entered this COVID crisis. You know, we also work closely with the Incline Village CVB and Andy Chapman and his team, and we promote travel to the region. And in March, that shifted. That whole strategy shifted dramatically since the onset of COVID-19. We've worked tirelessly to manage tourism responsibly, and that means telling visitors not to come to our region. You know, we are also a chamber of commerce, which means throughout our COVID response, the local business community was at the forefront of our efforts to reopen safely. Our combined goal is to ensure full-time residents that we ensure our full-time residents are safe and business recovery tools are in place. Now, as we prepared and built out our communication plan, there are core pillars of our communication overall strategy as the marketing organization as well as the management organization. And those are consumer-facing strategies, media-facing, and business. And we added a fourth one, which is our community pillar, our community-facing pillar. We start with consumer. And these are the number of channels that you see in front of you that we utilize to get our message out: our email, newsletter, our website, social media, our paid media, which is our advertising, our earned media, which is the work that we do, of course, with our journalists and our bloggers and our influencers. And of course, new to this list is the work that we did on our visitor readiness guide. We'll start with our e-newsletters, which is our email database. And it creates that consumer awareness and gets the messaging out directly via email. And we immediately started with health directives, stay-at-home orders, and messaging all related to that. As we got closer to the reopening period, and we entered that first phase and second phase, reopening messaging then began to be part of our email messaging, as you can see in some of the samples here. The core message, of course, was love Lake Tahoe from a distance. And that was something we reiterated and we did constantly. Love Lake Tahoe from afar, love North Lake Tahoe from a distance. Our most critical consumer-facing owned asset, of course, is our website, Go Travel North. This is this is the product, this is the asset that we have that does the heavy lift. And we updated this immediately on March 13th and throughout by updating with travel advisory banners and messaging. We created a number of different type of messaging products, including visitor itineraries, COVID-19 updates, and Know Before You Go guides, as well as other activities to keep people engaged and thinking and dreaming about our destination. Of course, our social media has become a major player in our communication. Our social media channels went on simmer, immediately pulled back from messaging of engagement to come up to our destination to love us from afar. What we wanted to do was share images of dreaming and thinking about North Lake Tahoe when the time is right. We also used our social media assets to highlight business updates and how you can support businesses in North Lake Tahoe, safety information, and Know Before You Go Tahoe information as we began to reopen and bring folks back to our destination, and of course, our Mask Up campaign, which we're going to talk about a little later. All of these are very consistent with the messaging that was coming out of the Visit California organization. As North Lake Tahoe reopened, we worked with our partners at Incline Village, as mentioned before, Crystal Bay Visitors Bureau, to produce a Know Before You Go safety videos highlighting best practices for outdoor recreation, restaurant, and retail safety. And those updates for our lodging community. Here you will see the responsible travel video, which has been shared across all of our digital channels, and I believe that's where IT has to help us with this. We can run video. Do I need to press anything? Okay. I hope it'll play. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Okay. This is one of the responsible travel videos, one of the first videos that we produced in conjunction with our partners at Incline to make sure that folks got the message of what safe and responsible travel is and how we need them to travel to our area and plan and set their expectations. And the video turned out phenomenal. Great metrics came out of it. Should we continue or wait? Okay, you got it. Thank you, Chairwoman Gore. Our social media campaign, Mask Up Tahoe, is our most recent product. No go? So late last week, our most recent campaign launched, which is titled Mask Up Tahoe. Local leaders from small business owners and nationally recognized athletes shared a unified statement that is rooted in adventure and responsible travel. Through videos and still photography, visitors and residents alike are reminded that wearing a face covering is a simple act but a grand gesture to help slow the spread of coronavirus. We're also working to create bilingual assets and working on that as we speak. Now, we'd like to share this montage video, if it's possible.
I love Lake Tahoe.
Oh, wonderful.
We love Lake Tahoe.
We were stuck inside for so long.
It's sunny. We're all itching to get out there.
For North Lake Tahoe
To open,
And stay open.
we all need to do our part.
and show that we truly care. Pretty easy to wear a mask.
You wear a mask to protect me.
I wear my mask to protect you.
We wear a mask
To help stop the spread of coronavirus.
and save lives.
when we show up with the mask on.
We're showing up for each other. We wear our masks.
To protect North Lake Tahoe.
It's a simple act, but a grand gesture. Mask Up Tahoe.
Wonderful. At this point, I'd like to introduce Liz Bowling, our Director of Communications and Media Relations. And Liz is going to talk through this as well as the great results that we've seen initially from our Mask Up Tahoe.
Thank you so much for having us here today. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to see all of you. So the Mask Up Tahoe campaign launched on July 10th, and so far we've received really positive feedback on the series of videos and especially the montage piece that you see today from local residents who needed help continuing to convey that message. And then as people are entering the destination, that they're getting targeted with this messaging that masks are required. So I do want to give kudos especially to Supervisor Gustafson and Aaron Casey for their leadership in this and pushing this forward. This has already resulted in a full feature at Powder Magazine, their digital platform, and on their social channels. And then we had a full page feature in our local newspaper, the Sierra Sun, that ran on Friday. As far as digital results, we have had 130,000 impressions across Facebook and Instagram. We have had 6,000 people engage with post content, and total reach so far, and again, this only launched on July 10th, is 114,000 people who have seen the video content. So far so good, and stay tuned to our channels as more videos launch. Again, we're utilizing a lot of our local athletes with global reach to help convey this message. So before I get into some of our earned media results, I'd love for you all to think back to mid-March at the onset of COVID. And what you'll remember is that North Lake Tahoe was in the middle of a snowstorm. And while we had had a pretty decent winter season, this was the catalyst to really push our businesses, our resorts through spring, which results in lots of travel to the destination during a time when it's not as busy. So a lot of businesses really rely on this March weather to continue that focus into spring. And so as the snow started to fall, everything shut down, which was pretty devastating for a lot of our resorts and our small businesses who, again, are relying on this visitation. There were two key strategies to our earned media approach. The first was centered on public health and community safety, so that's really reiterating the travel advisories that were in place, the stay-home directive from Governor Newsom, the shelter-in-place directive from Dr. Amy Sisson. So we really reiterated that across all of our PR outreach. We immediately got to work with our partners in Incline Village to craft destination statements about closures, and we also worked with Supervisor Gustafson and Tahoe Forest Hospital CEO Harry Weiss to create video messages that again extended that conversation about not traveling to North Lake Tahoe during a time when it really was not safe for our communities. So that allowed broadcast media to use those videos, and we were also allowed to share those across our digital channels, again, bringing the content of those press releases to life through video. We developed a number of press releases, as you will see a few examples of those from the destination in conjunction also with the Placer County PIO team. And then regionally, we worked with our partners in Truckee and South Lake Tahoe as the destination started to reopen under state guidance to really convey that know before you go information. So as a result, we had 78 media placements with an estimated reach of over 2.3 million people. And of those 78 media placements, 50 included a direct quote from a North Lake Tahoe representative. Stay home messaging accounted for 65 of those placements. So you'll see the breakdown of the key messages in those graphs above. You will hear about the gift card program a little bit later on in this presentation, but that was really where we rooted our conversations around North Lake Tahoe's business resilience, how to support our North Lake Tahoe businesses from afar when people weren't really allowed to visit, and also the strength of our communities in coming together, binding together through a very difficult period. As I mentioned, we worked closely with our DMO partners as we began to reopen, ensuring that while we were not marketing North Lake Tahoe, we were not promoting travel to the destination, we knew that people were coming. So how could they access North Lake Tahoe safely? We wanted to make sure that that message was consistent across the region. So communicating to our drive market was key. 42% of our total visitors come in for the day. So you'll see that as we are looking at where our placements were really targeted, the majority really did hit that drive market. However, we also did see placements on a national level through CNN Travel that actually specifically highlighted leadership from Placer County and internationally and in Southern California as well. And now I will turn this back over to Jeff, who can share what we have done on more of a local level to support our business community. Thank you.
In all my years of being in this profession, looking at the numbers of our impact and reach of messaging of not traveling to North Lake Tahoe was well received, and amazing numbers. So we know that it was impactful and very, very effective. Business advocacy and community support, so critical in what we do, especially on the Resort Association on the Chamber side. This is our local business advocacy support and readiness. And this is where our strategies and our tools that we create are utilized. And these are some of the amazing tools that have been developed over this period, from business advocacy, stakeholder calls, PPE, readiness toolkits, email newsletters, and things that we'll talk about as we move forward. But these demonstrate the range of work that we have done to support our local businesses. We have appreciated our partnership with the team based in North Lake Tahoe and feel strongly that our consistent collaboration has been extremely successful. A stakeholder group was organized right away, beginning the right post coronavirus announcement in mid-March, to ensure ongoing response efforts were coordinated. This included the NLTRA Board of Directors Executive Committee, myself, and the Communications Director, Liz, and key representatives from Placer County, including District 5 Supervisor Cindy Gustafson, economic development leaders, and the local team based in Tahoe City. And we typically would meet 3 times per week in mid-March. Ongoing conversations about everything as it relates to our reaction, monitoring, as well as what proactively we can do. There we go. A business and community resource page was added to our nltra.org website outlining recovery programs, public health directives, and ways to support small businesses and workforce and employee tools. This is currently the most highly trafficked page on our website. This is where the eyeballs go. A digital table of contents was sent through the NLTRA newsletter database so the local community knew how to access the page and easily navigate these content resources within. And what we have, these are the buckets that we created. And it started with 6 and it's grown now to over 15. And these are different resources that both workforce, business owners, business leaders, as well as the community can access to get real-time information, updated information throughout this crisis. And it's been a tremendous asset to our community. Now, one thing that we realized is, as I said, we have 3 pillars: our media-facing, our consumer-facing, and our business-facing. And the other pillar that we developed is a community-facing pillar to grow stronger, closer with our community, to ensure safety. And when tourists come back in, or make sure they know that we're doing everything we can to keep everyone safe. And to do that, we went to work on a very, very amazing campaign called Stronger Together and Smarter Together. And I want to bring back Liz Bowling up to share our 2 highly successful community-facing campaigns. We can run the video, or do you want to?
Yeah, I can intro it just a little bit to give you a bit of background. Jeff spoke to the collaboration with the Tahoe City Placer County team, and I just wanted to reiterate how impactful those calls and communications have been. Aaron Casey's leadership has been really phenomenal, as has Supervisor Gustafson, and the Stronger Together initiative was really born out of those calls. We saw that our community was hurting very, very bad, and we needed a way to convey positivity during this time. And so we really looked to our local leaders to do that. So from everyone from the emergency workforce to the school district to Sierra Community House, we looked to them to create individual messages that, again, went out to the local community about staying positive, that we're stronger together, that divisiveness is not the time for this right now. And so in total, we created 10 videos that really highlighted this message. And to date, the montage piece has received over 8,000 views. So that's what we're going to share with you today. If we can click play on the montage piece.
I believe wholeheartedly that as a community, we are stronger together.
I have no doubt that our North Lake Tahoe community will step up to the challenge. We are stronger together as long as we stay 6 feet apart.
Tahoe Truckee businesses, we are stronger together.
North Lake Tahoe, we're stronger together.
Hey everybody, just want to let you know we're in this with you guys. We are stronger together. Stay healthy.
Reach out to one another, help one another, take care of one another. North Tahoe, when all this is said and done, we'll be stronger together, but you gotta love one another in the process.
I am proud to be a North Lake Tahoe community member. Everybody stay kind to each other and remember that we're stronger together.
It's been really incredible seeing the community come together, supporting those most in need, supporting their neighbors, and we're not gonna get through this unless we get through it together.
This is affecting all of us, but we're stronger together.
Here in Tahoe, we're stronger together because we're a tight-knit local community. We help each other, we help our family and friends.
I know it's rough right now. It's gonna get better. The summer's coming. It's all gonna come back.
We are stronger together, and that is how we will recover as a community.
This isn't just a sign, this is actually the truth. We're stronger together.
It is hard, and we are here with you. We understand. We will all make it through this together.
Stay strong, stay at home, and stay safe.
Stronger together, so let's all work together, be strong, stay healthy, and really give everybody the message, stay apart from each other when you love each other. Stay strong.
To the businesses, our local workforce, our community, we're in this together and we're stronger together.
I have loved living here for 37 years of my life. This is such a phenomenal community. We are going to get through this. We are stronger together.
You know, in Tahoe, even after it snows, we always know that the blue skies are going to come back out. And just like today, when coronavirus is over, we know the blue skies are going to come back out for all of us and that we're going to be stronger together for Tahoe.
Just stay at home, stay cool, don't lose your mind, and we'll get through this. Stronger together.
We all love this community with all our heart, and it's hard for us not to be together right now, but just know that this is temporary, We will get through this, and when we come back together in a month or so, we will be stronger for it, and together we are strong.
Tahoe, we are strong together. We are even stronger together during this time. We are looking forward to coming out of it, and we will see you all very soon again.
We're asking that each of you fully shelter in place, and if we do that together, we can rapidly slow this disease, and we're going to be much stronger together.
We're as resilient as the Sierra Nevada. We've weathered many storms together before, and we're here to tell those stories today. We're going to do that same thing this time around, and we're going to be stronger together.
So as you can see as well, there was an underlying message that really reiterated that stay home and shelter in place, which we felt was very important. The message has been fully embraced by our community. Across the North Shore, there is signage. The fire department put up Stronger Together on their LED boards, painted windows. There were even rocks placed throughout the community. So we really felt that this campaign or this initiative moved into something that the community was really able to bind behind and get behind through this crisis. In addition to Stronger Together, we saw a need to also educate our local community on what the community composition of North Lake Tahoe is. So while our population fluctuates significantly by season, not everyone knows that nearly 70% of our housing inventory is actually allocated by part-time residents. And so really reiterating that and explaining that was important during this time, as we did see continued visitation to North Lake Tahoe. Short-term rentals were a big part of the conversation during that time, and what we also found that we wanted to convey is that short-term rentals really only accounted for a very small percent of our entire housing inventory. So that was a big piece to share. And then in addition to that, we also needed to explain what our visitor community looked like, so that 42% of our visitors are really only there for the day. So to help our community members better understand these specific points, we created a Smarter Together video, which was a subset of the Stronger Together video series. And so we will play that for you right now as well.
Tourism is such a critical part of our community. It's what makes our community move forward. It accounts for over 60% of all the jobs in our region. Tourism and our tourists come from all over the world. About 60% of our tourists are coming from the state of California. One important fact to know is 42% of our visitors are only day drives, so they just come up for the day. 10% of our visitors are actually international, coming from all over the world. And the remaining number of our visitors come from all around the United States, including sectors that take advantage of our meeting facilities or obviously our outdoor recreation. You know, it's North Lake Tahoe is such a worldwide popular tourism destination. It actually attracts 8 million visitors annually to our community that spend on an average $835 million that is pumped into our community that is responsible for driving jobs and growing our workforce.
The vast majority of the people who live here in Lake Tahoe were either visitors or their parents were visitors prior to them living here. And it's important to give the same type of welcome and reception to the current visitor that you were given when you moved here.
North Lake Tahoe is truly a remarkable place. And it's not just because of our spectacular mountain environment. It truly is about the people, the phenomenal people who choose to invest, to live, to work, and to serve our community as both part-time and full-time residents. In fact, our community is unique. Of our 26,000 homes, over 16,000 are occupied by part-time residents and only 7,000 by full-time residents. It takes us all working together.
Hopefully this information is very helpful to understand how much and how important tourism is to our community. So when that opportunity comes, hopefully soon, that we can welcome back our visitors, you know now how important the visitors are and how much important tourism is to our overall community and the way that we move forward together, stronger together.
So with 60% of our regional workforce in leisure industries, we wanted to ensure that this message again was conveyed because our workforce was laid off essentially during this time. And so again, reiterating those points felt very important to us to do. So that video and the infographics were shared across North Lake Tahoe Resort Association's digital channels throughout the month of May, which is also California Tourism Month. With that, I will turn it back over to Jeff so you can hear a little bit more about our local business advocacy efforts. Thank you so much.
If you all have a chance, if you haven't already, I encourage you to drive throughout the North Lake Tahoe Basin, and you'll see the Stronger Together signs either painted on windows, signage throughout. It's quite an uplifting and inspirational experience to see how the community came together. We'll go back and talk about some of the additional activities and strategies that we put in place to help our business community. Obviously, with being closed for so many months, we had to find other ways to get our business community revenue, and that was through a gift card program. And this created an opportunity for those businesses to go ahead and start selling online and getting folks to generate some revenue for them. High level of media coverage from California, Reno, in the Bay Area. Our business advocacy was so critical. One of the things that we put in place immediately was we facilitated multiple stakeholder calls. The first focused on public health and tourism resources. The second focused on securing a financial lifeline through COVID-19. The third phase took place over a 2-week period and focused on primary business industries in the North Lake Tahoe region. These are like listening tours. We took our retail sector, our restaurant sector, our lodging sector, and we could talk through the process of what it's going to take to reopen and putting those safety protocols in place. And these calls were so critical and helpful to bring everybody together that it ultimately culminated in producing what we call business readiness kits. We also hosted a town hall meeting with the entire business community to discuss reopening safely, and we did the same thing with our actual locals in our community to talk about what it is and how we're going to reopen safely, so they all were walking with us at the same time. So we, again, with us creating that community pillar, we felt it's so important, and we wanted to, again, thank Supervisor Gustafson for all the time that she devoted to help us with these town halls. It was tremendously helpful. During these stakeholder calls, we included state tourism leaders from both Nevada as well as California, and of course, Placer County and regional public health officials, including Dr. Sisson and Harry Weiss. We continue to work with our business community on reopening responsibly, and with our business partners, including the Tahoe City Downtown Association and the North Tahoe Business Association. We work closely with them on a daily basis and communicating, as well as working on how we can enhance programs to support all of their business members. We host multiple business town hall virtual calls, as I said, that help produce safe opening protocols, and these are an example of some of those areas that we work together on so those businesses can reopen safely with the visitor in mind and the workforce in mind. COVID business compliant. We continue to issue weekly email newsletters to our local database, well over 4,000. Our open rate has doubled over the past few months as we utilize certain list segments to communicate directly with our key industries about this critical information that we're sharing with them. Through this channel, we have created and deployed industry-specific business toolkits specific to their sector. That includes our retail, restaurant, and activity providers, as well as our lodging. And this includes state guidance and checklists, as we see here, reopening dates, important blogs, key resources for community health and public officials so they can go to the source and get that information without wasting time. Again, more critical information and development for our business community. Another area that we jumped in quickly, We've been distributing PPE at our visitor center since late May. And actually, our visitor center has been open now since Memorial Day weekend on limited hours. It's back to its regular hours now, but we went ahead and redesigned a COVID safety environment for our visitors to come in, as well as, most importantly, for our workforce as well, from traffic flow to plexiglass. We have shared personal protection equipment with our business community since June as we work closer together with Placer County. We've hosted 2 PPE giveaway days in both Kings Beach and Tahoe City, the most recent last Friday, with a tremendous result, both of them distributing thousands of PPE equipment to businesses throughout the North Lake Tahoe Basin. We look ahead, and our staff and our board members, we're going to plan to go door to door. In fact, I'll be doing some of that late this week, going to see some of our West Shore businesses and some of our businesses up on the Kings Beach area to continue to hand out PPE, masks, sanitizer. It is so, so critically important. Now, as we wrap up, this work doesn't end here. It continues, and it's going to continue from a level of monitoring, communication, and business outreach. For example, with our restaurant sector facing new restrictions, our goal is to create a promo and communication campaign, such as a Takeout Tahoe Eats. These are the type of programs that we're looking to help those sectors that are rolling back or being impacted or creating more of what I call speed bumps to achieve some type of normalcy in their business. We're going to be reactive. We're going to be monitoring. We continue to have our stakeholder calls twice a week, along with other calls that Aaron Casey does some amazing work on. And we're going to continue that so we make sure we're in front of what needs to be done. We prefer not to be reactive, but we need to be, but more importantly, then we become proactive in our communication. And as I use an example of our restaurant, it's important that we're going to maintain this level of communication and business outreach so we can get through this together and make sure that every business sector has the best opportunity to survive and be ready to go so once we get back to some type of normalcy. And the same thing is true for our workforce and our local community, is keeping them in mind. And that's everything, that's our core focus. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for allowing us to take some of your time to share with you the work that we've been doing, and I cannot express, again, how thankful we are for all of the work you do, especially Supervisor Cindy Gustafson and this work that Aaron Casey does with us. It's helped me, as you know. I've only been here since late January, and I've had to learn who the players are in the field quickly, and I can't say that I wouldn't have been able to do that with the work and the support that we get from this Aaron Casey. It's been tremendous, and from Supervisor Cindy Gustafson and the leadership that she's shown. It's an amazing destination, and we thank you for all your support, and we certainly are excited about the future. With that, we have opened up for any questions. Liz,
thank you very much. Appreciate it, Jeffrey. Really appreciate all the hard work y'all have put in. Supervisor Holmes?
Oh, thank you, Jeff and Liz. Which supervisor was it again? This is unbelievable. The County Executive Office in Tahoe and Cindy and your organization hit this head on, and it's unbelievable the work you've done, and it's trying to keep all those balls up in the air and keep everybody informed about what's going on up there and how to survive this terrible event we're going through. I'm really, really impressed. So thank you, Cindy Gustafson, for your work on this, in case anybody didn't know. And I want to thank Jennifer Merchant and Erin and her team for all the hard work on this. So great job. And I can't wait to get up there.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Euler?
Do we have any idea at this point what we are looking at by way of our vulnerable businesses? What percentage of our business population in the Tahoe Basin is on the cusp at this point based on the shutdowns that we've had?
Right now, it's good news. Everybody's holding their own. Are aware of a few very small businesses. I believe a tattoo parlor might be closing down, but our restaurants are holding on. I think the sooner we can get back to allowing our restaurants to be reopened inside will help. But as of this point, we're holding our own. We think, I would say that probably the most vulnerable are going to be our restaurant sector and potentially some of our smaller, real small niche retail sector. But every other week we'll have conversations with our business associations to just monitor that to see what areas are showing weakness or potential casualty. And thank goodness, nothing has come out yet. But again, the longer this goes, that I think we create more stress, in particular those areas.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add to that response? And Jeff, just because my office ends up dealing with some of the more vulnerable businesses, so who I'm hearing from are gyms, salons, in general, are really very, very challenged, and most cannot move outdoors. And so I know one of our major gyms in Tahoe City is very much challenged right now, and whether or not she's going to be able to remain open is doubtful at this point. We are doing our best to assist our office to write a letter to her landlord, which is Safeway Corporate, to ask them to consider reductions in the rent during this period of time. But our more tourism-facing businesses seem to be doing okay right now. We are very busy, and I've talked about that. The amount of visitation we're getting up there and especially day visits that we're concerned about. But when we move into colder weather, those restaurants can't survive outdoors, and so it's going to be challenging.
All right, no other questions, and we could take public comment if we would like to, and I don't know if we've got anybody from the public on Zoom who would like to give some feedback or ask a question. This is your time. You can raise your hand on Zoom.
Sarah, go ahead and give your comments. Sarah, unmute your mic and give your comments, please. Okay. Laura, please unmute your mic and give your comments.
Like Sarah unmuted.
Good.
How about either Sarah or Laura? If you want to make a comment, now is your opportunity. One of you can jump in. No? All right.
I believe I know both of those individuals. They've sent me numerous emails with concerns about both behavior of visitors in our region and concerns about some of those, and I can forward those, make sure that all the board members get those, and happy to talk further. Hopefully they can jump in at some point here to relay their concerns to the rest of you. You still working on it?
Probably not. All right. Oh.
We're trying to get them access, but we can't.
Love technology. All right.
A lot of the concerns are about, I believe on both situations, are about the short-term rentals and the visitation, and can't we curb or control visitation are the concerns I think that both have expressed to me in emails. But again, I'm summarizing a lot of various emails from both individuals and Facebook posts.
All right. So it looks like we're having an issue internally. What's that?
Solely to chambers.
Oh, that we can actually hear their comments, so they can. Oh,
They're talking.
that is not
It's
great.
piping into chambers.
All right. So.
Want to take a couple-minute break and let IT.
Yeah, I think we need to do that because we've got a couple of other items on the agenda which we need to allow people to have public comment. So let's see, nothing from the board right now. Why don't we just give ourselves, a 5-minute break. We're gonna see if we can get the IT issue resolved so that people can call in via Zoom. And if that's a problem, we might have to do the phone, which we prefer not to. So we're gonna take 5 minutes. There may or may not be questions, and then we'll come back. Thank you, appreciate it. Good idea. Turn that off.
Both of those are gonna be about short-term rentals. Short-term rentals. And visitor bad behavior, noise, after-hours parties. Have I forwarded you those?
I know, it doesn't sound familiar.
Sarah has sent a picture of the rat. Yep. And then we actually reached out to Laura to say, hey, let's do a call. Yeah, she's trying to pull together a whole Facebook group, and I'm thinking all of that, yeah. So, yeah.
She'll have a call tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
Get some feedback.
She, lives a block from me and on the lakefront, and has become a very incensed, because she didn't used to be this way.
Well, and I'm sure Doug and all of that, but I've seen all of them, and it's.
Doug goes to Sierra. They have a second home in Sierra, so he's not even there.
Oh, no.
So he's up in Sierra.
Audio test. Testing. Audio test. Testing.
We can hear you, Hillary.
Thank you, Megan.
Do you want, I got a report, I haven't looked at them, I got an email last week about them. So, do you want it for this, or?
Mics are still hot.
Oh, I see.
You do?
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to let you know.
Right. Well,
There's any data on that.
yeah, let me go
we won't know. Because this is the June report, so.
Okay, so Q3 is, remind me,
It's down.
January to March.
No, 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 it's, March, April, May.
No, January, February, March.
Yeah, that's right, January, March, yep, and it's usually our,
Was that the,
it
was that the
competes
quarter
with
we had?
Q1 for first place, they go back and forth. So Q1 and Q2, we were pretty much the same as last year, Q3, we're way down.
And that was before really the impacts.
Exactly.
Right, but I think they all did have to report, but they just not paid, so it should be reported though.
Yes, it should be reported. So that's a pretty big decrease, and then Q4 will be way down. I mean, we're at $4,000 out of 3.6 million.
So 2 million off of 7.
Yeah, what's that percentage?
Yep.
Yeah, that's 23% decrease.
It was 23% from what, the last portion?
From Q3 last year.
Oh, from Q3, okay, got
From
it.
the prior year, so we're down, yeah, 23%.
But we still came in higher than what the budget was.
Yeah, because we budget low because it's a volatile source, so we've always been really conservative about the money that we budget.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get restarted. Thank you for the brief break. I think we've got Zoom back and going. So we're going to start with our Zoom calls, and we're going to start with, was it
Laura?
Laura? All right, Laura, let's see if we can hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, super. Thank you. Thank you for letting us speak today and for addressing these really important issues. I live in Lake Forest, and I'm just commenting today because I've been hearing a lot of comments from friends and neighbors, and also have seen myself this overcrowding on the beaches. And I'm wondering if the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association or the county or some of the local agencies are putting together a plan for I hate to say restricting the crowds, or I hate to restrict actions, but just for keeping people safe in the public spaces up in North Lake Tahoe. And then the other half of that is that we need some funding and some more people to pick up trash. There's just so much trash left behind, and it really makes these public spaces look unappealing. It's just not good for our community and our place as a destination. It doesn't look good. It's awful. The trash is awful. So I'm thinking we could just fund for the summer some extra trash pickup, especially on the weekends. Could you please address that? Thanks.
Thank you for your call. We appreciate it. And we'll take the next callers and we'll follow up with answers to questions. So next caller, we're going to try, was that Sarah?
Go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments. Sarah, we're unable to hear you. I think this is an audio issue on your side.
Darn.
We'll go to.
All right.
William, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I was curious, when can we expect the results of the antibody test that was, I think it was supposed to be performed about a month ago? I was curious if we have any more information about that.
Great. We will follow up at the end of all the public comment. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Next caller.
Estodi, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
was the name? And let her know.
Doherty, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments. She's not unmuting.
All right, so Shauna, we didn't hear you. And also, there is the chat function. Sometimes we need to check that chat function, but, all right. So any other comments that we can get? All right, thank you very much. And we're gonna have to figure out how to help Sarah get in, if she does indeed have a comment. What's that? Okay, so Sarah will reach out to you. All right, we're going to bring it back to the board, unless we get through to Sarah. And we had a couple of questions about the crowding on beaches, the trash. Erin, if you want to step up, that would be great. Thank you.
Of course. On the trash collection, that issue has come up several times, and in fact, we've had quite a few meetings with our agency partners in the area, as well as county staff, to talk about increasing trash service. And this actually goes beyond some of the more recent issues with visitors and visitation increasing in the region, but really looking at ways to consolidate trash collection in North Lake Tahoe, making sure we're streamlining that work throughout all of our facilities in the downtown areas, identifying which agencies have which role, where the county fits in there. And in fact, we were on a call on Friday on this very topic, talking about how to improve trash collection and trash service in our community. And we've come up with quite a few different strategies that we'll be pursuing in the very near future to address this issue. So that's my response to that particular comment that the caller made. On beach restrictions and public space, she spoke to beaches specifically, public spaces. I can't speak to restrictions, but I can speak to a lot of the work that many of our agency partners have put forward to try to encourage people to safely visit our public spaces. We developed several signs early on, a few months ago, working with our document solutions department here internally, working with the Tahoe Fund. They have a fantastic Take Care campaign that's typically focused on regional stewardship, but they were able to adapt their messaging to help support other messaging that we needed on physical distancing, wearing face coverings, how to conduct yourself in public spaces. Those were printed and shared with our PUD partners and other agencies that do have a role in either in managing facilities, managing beaches, getting that signage out into the community, and that took place a couple months ago. So that's something that we worked on early on as a result of coordinated meetings with a lot of regional partners that were concerned about recreation and the demands of our public spaces once those facilities were open again to the public. So there has been quite a few or many steps that have been taken to address that issue, and we continue to coordinate with our agency partners on this very topic, coming up with a variety of solutions as we learn more and as the trends seem to change in our community.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate that. And then let's see, Todd, do you want to just give an update on where we're at with the testing? Or
yeah, I know we've actually been meeting with Stanford. They're going to be handling really all phases of this study. I know we're working on the contract right now. I don't know, Robert, do you have an update?
We checked with Dave, I think yesterday actually, and don't have anything anything more to add to that. The thing went sort of full circle in that Stanford now is doing a turnkey presentation to us, so we're kind of more dependent on their schedule. We're doing it collaboratively with Solano and Contra Costa counties, but I'm hoping very soon.
And Chair Gore, I'm sorry, if I may, just one more thing I wanted to add to the comment about beach and public spaces. We are actively working on developing an ambassador program for our region. This is something that we've been in communication with different organizations that have interest in developing something like this, to get out into the community, share information, answer questions,
City of South Lake Tahoe is in the process of developing something very similar, and we have a lot of interest from a variety of volunteer groups that would like to support an effort like this. So just want to at least convey that to the caller and those that share in her concerns about some of the pressures that our public spaces and our community is feeling from the number of visitors in the area, that we are actively developing a variety of approaches to try to address those issues and concerns. And that is also another one.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate that. Cindy?
Thank you. I wanted to thank not only Jeff and Liz for the outstanding work, especially Erin Casey for all of her leadership in convening all these phone calls, and all the other supervisors who stand behind the partnership we have with the Resort Association, who all are instrumental in how we've been able to reallocate resources and devote them to visitor education and guidance in our community. And I really appreciate that, and especially the board of directors of the Resort Association, who again, I think have been on, well, for a while, daily calls, then 3 times a week. I think we're down to twice a week, but incredible effort on everybody's part. We are moving forward with the Tahoe Transportation District to really look at a program called One Tahoe, which would be potentially basin entry fees. And with that program, we have to have the buy-in of both the state of California and the state of Nevada, but it would allow congestion management pricing. Now, this is several years away, and I know people want immediate actions, but we're not going to get there immediately. But through a long-term plan, we may be able to see some opportunity to control visitation more. Also, paid parking started today at the East Shore parking lot on a bike trail in Incline Village, and we're monitoring that to see how paid parking is going to be influential in guiding the public to take shuttles and other modes of transportation versus relying on the car. And then I think finally on the trash, there are so many agencies involved. So I'll reach out to Laura and find out specifically who's whose property that is, because there's some that are public utility district maintenance contracts with the county, some that are state parks units, some are Forest Service properties, and there's varying levels of service at all those. And just being a local up there for a lot of years, it does get confusing. So even if the county looks at more garbage pickup, doesn't necessarily mean those entities are are allocating those resources to pick up the beaches. And most of those facilities do not have entrance fees, so there really isn't a revenue stream. So that's why we're looking at whether a system like basin entry fees could allow better management. But there is hope, but it's still out there a few years before we bring that program forward. And I do believe they're going to try to get here in October to present to our Board of Supervisors that basin, the One Tahoe program. So,
thank you. And it looks like we finally got a hold of Sarah, correct?
Well, we now know what her question is, and she's wants to ask about messaging regarding staying away until mid-August. She says this is coming from Truckee and North Tahoe.
Cindy, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I do, because I was quoted on that. The town of Truckee reached out to me and asked if we could jointly release a statement to advise day visitors to maybe reconsider their time. The press release went out, I believe, on Thursday or Friday. I talked to a couple of media folks just suggesting that what we really want is people to plan ahead. It's always been this issue of if you have a reservation, if you have a plan, but the peak weekends right now are incredibly busy. One state park unit I'm familiar with over in Incline, again, Sand Harbor, one of the most popular beaches on the North Shore, they are sold out. Their parking is completely full by 8:30 on a Saturday morning. And the backup is an hour long of people getting in line and then finding out they don't have a parking space. So it's incredibly frustrating, and our messaging was trying to help people understand that maybe wait till mid to late August. Typically, this is our peak of our visitation, and people should come later. So that's what we put out. I believe it was Thursday afternoon.
It was.
Erin?
You're right. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the update. We appreciate the hard work. Thank you for coming down from Tahoe to give us an update.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to going to Tahoe in a couple of months. seeing people in person. With that, we are going to move on to item 2A, which is our proposed workforce housing preservation program. Good afternoon, Shauna.
Good afternoon. Shauna Purvines, Community Development Resources Agency. Today, we're going to provide you just an update on the proposed workforce housing preservation program. You may remember about a year and a half ago, we had George Ruther from the city of Vail, Colorado, come out and speak to us about a program they had launched roughly a year before that called the Vail Indeed program. After further review of that program, additional conversations with your board, we have determined that it's probably a program that is a good fit for Placer County in some way. We did run into a few hurdles getting the program kind of outlined and put together just due to differences in California state law versus the Colorado law, but we do believe we have found a path forward for this program. So Emily Setzer with the CEO's office has been the lead on this program and researching it and has prepared draft guidelines for the program. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to her to kind of walk through where we are today. And then we hope to gain some feedback and discussions from you and residents or citizens that want to provide additional comments on that, and then return to your board roughly in about 90 days with an actual program that you might be able to consider. So with that, I'll turn it over to Emily.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction, Shauna. Okay, so for this presentation, I will be going over our countywide housing initiatives and our housing needs, so we can ground you in where we are today before proposing what we're moving forward with. And then we'll be going over our inspiration for this program, which was Vail's Indeed model. And then I will go over our proposed program, which has two components. One is countywide and one is just for East Placer. And I look forward to hearing your feedback. So far, the last 2 years, between 2017 and 2019, we have done a lot of work on housing in the county, as you're well aware of. Our CEO established a multi-departmental housing unit team. Your board approved the annual housing work plans. We've conducted numerous studies. We are in the middle of updating our annual housing element and also have submitted annual progress reports on that to HCD. We've conducted 4 public housing studies on housing costs, types, second homes, and accessory dwelling units. Your board approved investment in affordable housing projects. Your board approved 3 years of funding for the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation Mountain Housing Council. And then the Housing Strategy and Development Plan was completed in 2018. We've identified over 100 county housing opportunity sites, and the Affordable Housing Investment and Loan Portfolio was established as well. For work that's currently in progress, for policy and programs, we have been developing our 1- and 3-year action plan with an annual report. We've been working on improving housing incentive programs countywide, of which this is one of those. We're working on the housing element update. We are working closely with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency to update our Tahoe Basin Area Plan on code amendments that would help facilitate more housing in the basin. And as always, we are working to improve our local, regional, and public-private partnerships. We're updating code amendments countywide. We focus on legislative advocacy at the state and federal level. And then we're also working on increasing our funding opportunities. The more exciting part is probably the construction of housing. So we are looking forward to seeing Mercy Housing at the Placer County Government Center being constructed soon. Schaefer's Mill is set to start construction in about the next month up in outside of Truckee in East Placer County, and then Sabre City closer to Roseville. Additionally, we're working on mixed use and co-housing at the Government Center and planning and design for the Dollar Creek Crossing project north of Tahoe City. Our housing strategy and development plan has numerous components. Under the local funding piece, I won't go through all of this in detail, but under the local funding piece, it does point out the deed restriction program, which was our Vail and Deed model. For our county's housing needs, I'll go through those from separated out from the West and East County. So in West Placer, between 2018 and 2040, our new housing unit demand expects the need for approximately 8,000 to almost 19,000 new single-family houses to be built, and that's depending on a low-growth or high-growth scenario. And then we are expecting a need for about between 1,000 and 2,500 multifamily units in West Placer over the next 20 years. For East Placer, it's a little bit flip-flopped. We have fewer single-family homes and more multifamily homes, you'll notice. We're expecting between 290 and over 600 single-family homes as a new need for the next 20 years, and between 700 and 1,700 multifamily units needed to be constructed in East Placer. As far as people going to purchase homes in East Placer, it's a little bit different from the rest of the county in that the housing market is priced so high, especially lately. For people, over 50% of people looking to purchase homes in East Placer would be looking based on affordability levels for a housing unit or home that's costs less than $400,000, which really doesn't exist. About 12% would be looking for that $400,000 to $500,000 price range. 17% would be looking up to $700,000, and then that top 14% could afford over $700,000. I'll go into a little more detail on East Placer's housing problem. East Placer has a population of about 12,000 residents, and about 15,000 housing units. 12% of those are owner-occupied. The remaining are either second homes or long-term rentals or short-term rentals. In the past 10 years, we have been seeing decreasing annual amounts of houses sold to primary residents. So around 2010, we were seeing about 10% of all homes sold annually in East Placer. Those were going to primary residents. Over the past decade, that has decreased. So now we saw in 2019, only 6% of all of the homes sold annually went to primary residents. The East Placer median income is about $62,000, which is a little bit less than the countywide area median income. So if you were to take even 120% of that income, somebody would be looking to purchase a studio for about $270,000 or a 3-bedroom unit for about $380,000. To put that in perspective, in March 2020, our median single-family home price in East Placer was $720,000. So almost twice of what somebody at 120% of that local area median income could afford. Probably because of this, we have been seeing quite a population loss in East Placer over the last 20 years. We compiled census data from 2000 and 2010, and then census estimates from 2018. And we found that the North Tahoe Basin, plus Alpine Meadows and Squaw Valley, lost about 4,600 full-time residents in the last 20 years. And that's almost a third of the 2000 population. Meanwhile, the rest of East Placer, just around the summit and closer to Truckee, and in the valleys, saw a moderate increase of 300 residents. To put that in perspective, countywide, this is the only area where we have been seeing a population decrease. West Placer has grown by about 43%, and the foothills have grown by about 11%. This has, as you can imagine, impacted the workforce locally. We have some data from surveys that show that 59% of the North Tahoe Truckee workforce commutes from outside of the area, oftentimes Reno or Carson City. About 82% of respondents to employer surveys in the North Tahoe Truckee region reported that the lack of availability of suitable housing for workers negatively impacts employee recruitment and retention. And then more than 50% of respondents in a 2018 poll of likely voters in Eastern Placer County said that the lack of affordable housing was a critical community issue. So we have a number of ways that I described at the beginning of this to kind of tackle housing from many different angles. So this is just one piece of that puzzle. But we did model a lot of this program after Vail. Vail, they started their Indeed program because they were seeing that 9 out of 10 homes in their town were being sold to second homeowners. Right now, East Placer is seeing 94%. They started this deed restriction program. I'll just give you a brief refresher. It's a voluntary deed restriction program in which an existing homeowner or buyer could participate in the program. And there is no appreciation cap on the home. There's no income cap on the occupants or homeowner, and there's no household size requirement. There's a financial incentive. The participant does get paid. And in return, that home needs to be occupied by a full-time worker in perpetuity. In Colorado, their deed restrictions do run with the land, so forever. This program has also been adopted in the town of Breckenridge and the town of Frisco in Colorado, and Moab, Utah was looking at it as well. Vail believes that program preserves and protects their existing homes in their community. Preserving the existing homes is much more cost-effective than providing subsidies. It's much quicker and less risky than developing new construction. There's less resistance from neighbors. It opens up homeownership opportunities to their community members and provides a variety of home types to a wide range of buyers. And like I said, that deed restriction does run with the land. Vail conducted some economic analysis and found that their Indeed program is earning them a 5% annual return on investment to the town. So for every 100 units of housing, they believe their program is returning $18 million as a result of an increase in filled positions, $2.6 million in increased local household spending, over $100,000 in new local sales tax revenue. It's eliminating 40,000 commute hours and therefore reducing carbon emissions. And it's also providing state backfill revenue for the school-aged children and increasing volunteer labor. Vail's deed restrictions have averaged about 15 to 17% of the market value of that housing unit. And then Vail estimates that when those houses then sell, they're selling at that percentage less, so about 15 to 17% less than market value. And so it's creating a secondary market for the local workforce. We are contracting with BAE to conduct some economic analysis for our county to help us estimate the values of deed restrictions for our regions and how to land on those values. And then also to estimate the return on investment and impacts to the market for our county. So now I'll go over our proposed program. Our goals are to preserve and utilize the existing housing stock for our local workforce. We also aim to increase developer options to satisfy the affordable housing requirements to secure workforce housing. We have two program components here. One is county-wide, which I'll go over first, and then I'll go over just the East Placer portion. The county-wide component is targeted towards developers or trusts on behalf of the developers in order to pay a homeowner in exchange for deed restricting a home. That deed restriction would limit it to full-time occupancy only, which could be the homeowner or a renter. This would be eligible at the point of sale or transaction. There would be an annual 120% annual median income cap required. And then we would run that deed restriction for 55 years. There is an option here to renew that 55-year term with each point of sale and transaction. Some other jurisdictions do that, including the town of Mammoth. So that is an option we would like your feedback on today. And then at least one occupant should work no more than 20 driving miles from the residence at an employment site in Placer County. One other component of this program is that by incorporating this program and implementing it, we do hope to reduce some of our vehicle miles traveled throughout the county. And I will add that for this countywide component, we see benefit in this because we have a lot of smaller developers who have smaller workforce housing requirements. And so when you only have half a unit or 2 units to construct or to purchase, this provides another option to help secure that workforce housing requirement and get that in place more quickly. The additional East Placer component is really modeled closely after the Vail and Deed program. So this would be eligible to existing or new homeowners. There would be no income cap on the occupant. The residents would have to be in East Placer. And then the occupant would have to work an average of 30 hours a week within the Tahoe-Truckee Unified School District. And then we did add a component here that retired individuals who have worked 30 or more hours a week for the last 7 years may qualify. There are many benefits to providing or targeting this program to buyers and to existing owners. We have gotten feedback asking us about both options. And so Vail chose to go ahead and target both new buyers and existing owners because they saw a short-term benefit and a long-term benefit. When you are helping a buyer purchase a house, that's an immediate community benefit. It does help incentivize home ownership. And then that buyer can use the funds for any purpose. It could help with their down payment or improvements to the unit, or they can just stash it away or put it towards their mortgage. To help fund existing owners with this program, it's a longer-term community benefit. It does help prevent the loss of existing housing, so that complements our acquisition, because we do know that if a house goes on the market tomorrow or in 2 years, there's a 94% chance right now that it will be sold to a second homeowner and not a worker in the community. This also could incentivize long-term rentals by making short-term rentals more inclined to change the use of that house and make it a long-term rental because of that immediate cash incentive. The benefits to the Workforce Housing Preservation Program are that it does help preserve our existing housing stock. It provides home ownership opportunities for a wide range of income households. It's quicker and less expensive than new construction. It doesn't trigger prevailing wage. Full-time residents help support communities. It secures the house for 55 years, again with that potential renewal at every transaction, rather than just providing a one-time homebuyer assistance loan. I'll add that we do already have first-time homebuyer assistance programs throughout the county. It also helps support improvements to the existing housing stock and incentivizes adaptive reuse of vacant structures. And it also provides opportunities for regional collaboration. So for East Placer, when we were doing our analysis and developing the program, we were debating between whether to target the Vail model towards just that red area of population loss or to propose it for East Placer. And we landed so far on that by targeting it towards East Placer, it does open up more opportunities for regional collaboration. We've heard a lot of feedback from the community and see potential in potentially partnering with the town of Truckee and other partners in our region. So that is why we have chosen the East Placer as the boundary for that portion of the program. We do propose to monitor and adaptively manage this program. We would include monitoring annually of all program participants. And by doing that, we would be able to evaluate some data and trends, including the types of housing units and the prices of housing units participating in the program, how often those units sell, whether they're occupied by renters or owners, whether these were buyers or existing homeowners, and then over time, track changes to our workforce population. And that will help us assess how effective the program is and then update it or adapt it as needed. Our goal is to achieve 50 deed restrictions per year, 40 in East Placer and 10 in the rest of the county. For our first year, we're hoping to soft launch this program by securing $1 million and then establish a fund for developer deposits with public-private housing trusts. In subsequent years, we aim to fund it with a budget of $3 million annually. We could fund it through our public-private housing trusts and other participants and stakeholders. And then this goal could be increased or adapted depending on needs and funding. We did talk with George Ruther from the town of Vail and asked him his lessons learned from implementing their program, which has gone on for about 2.5 years now. And his number one piece of advice was to prepare for success. Their program has acquired more than 140 deed restrictions in 2.5 years. And they budget about $2.5 million per year for their program. And that's a town of 5,000 people, just to put that in perspective. We've sought a lot of community input so far. We've discussed this program and presented to the Placer County and Tahoe-Truckee Community Foundations, the North State Building Industry Association, the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association, and East Placer and Nevada County Realtor Stakeholder Group, the North Tahoe and Squaw Valley Municipal Advisory Council, and a new JPA that was formed in the East Placer, Nevada County region called the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, as well as our local business associations. And so far, we have received overwhelming support for this program and have received some specific comments that we are taking into account, and I think will help refine the program and build it into a really useful program for our communities. So now I'm happy to take your feedback. I would like to ask your input specifically on if you have interest in renewing that 55-year term at each point of sale and transaction. Like Shauna said, we will continue to do analysis on this program on the economic side and continue to refine the program and then bring it back to your board for adoption within 90 days.
Great, thank you very much. Let's see, we've got questions from board members. Supervisor Holmes?
Thank you, Emily. That was a great presentation. Looks like we've got a plan in place. Just following through with it is going to be the challenge. Could you go back to the slide about additional East Placer components?
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, here we go.
There. The fourth bullet says occupant must work at least 30 hours a week within the TTUSD, that's Tahoe Truckee Unified School District.
Yes, those geographical boundaries.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure that, I knew the answer to that, but I just want to be clear.
Good clarification.
So within the boundaries, all right.
All right, other questions? Supervisor Gustafson?
Sure. Thanks, Emily. Great presentation, and thank you for everybody who's working on this program, because I do think that Vail has this segment that we haven't seen elsewhere in the state of California as readily and available, and it certainly meets another aspect of our housing needs that for those that make above 120 and the opportunity 120% of AMI. Just a couple comments. Again, because we will have, whatever we do, we'll have limited funds, and there's huge demand, and real estate is moving very, very rapidly right now from every account I hear. So I'd really like us, at least initially, to focus on the new homeowners versus existing. We've received a couple of public comments, and I have agreed with those that the potentially, if we're going to prioritize, I'd like to focus on the new homeowner eligibility. And I think we'll have more demand than we can fund anyway, so focusing it there. And then that final bullet on retired individuals. I haven't quite gotten there yet, but even if I did, I'm already in my home, I'm already living here full-time, I've probably already owned my home, and to buy a deed restriction from me, you're not going to see the results very quickly. And so, again, just out of priority, I would say not to eliminate that in the future as a potential, but to focus on these, kind of our new workforce coming in and staying in. And I know one of the comments talked specifically about income levels. And as you know, and I'll share with my other board members, you've probably heard some of this, whether you're the hospital recruiting doctors, or whether you're recruiting firefighters, and paramedics, or whether you're recruiting school teachers, or whether you're recruiting scary employees and some of the entry-level positions, everybody has a housing issue in Tahoe, and everybody is challenged with getting new employees to relocate to the area when they look at the housing market as compared to other places where their income and their housing price will be much more in alignment. So it's not a matter of, this is one of a whole variety of things we're doing in housing. And unfortunately, I think a couple of the public comments we received are focused on just looking at this program and not in conjunction with everything else we're doing. But those are just a few of the feedback. And then the renewal on the 55 years, could you explain that?
Sure.
A little more, because I'm not sure I'm clear.
Yeah, so the guidance we've been getting from County Council is that California state law does differ from Colorado law. So in Colorado, that deed restriction is able to run in perpetuity forever. In California, we have been given guidance to go with a 55-year duration. However, there is an opportunity or to renew that 55-year duration with every transaction, so that every time that home sells or goes to a new homeowner, that term could start over. So that kind of gets you closer to what Colorado is doing.
Well, that makes sense to me, because we also have a buyout program, correct? There is a
an
component
opportunity,
here,
yes.
is when you sell, you can pay us back with interest, then we can reinvest that in another home if somebody chooses to remove that deed restriction. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do have an option for participants to buy out the deed restriction.
And then we get back our investment plus some amount of interest on that investment.
We haven't worked out the details of the interest percentage yet, but we will put that into the final program.
Right, that's fairly easy to do with the indexing that we see in economic indicators, but I would think continuing to renew it just extends that life of that deed restriction, and people always have that option to buy out that. So that would be my feedback on the one you asked for direction on.
Thank
but
you.
I'm happy to hear other public comment on that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Euler.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to why would it be in my interest upon selling the house or buying the house? First of all, is it the buyer of the house that has the deed restriction that has to apply for the extension? Or is it the seller upon selling, or the buyer upon buying? So if I opt into the program, and 10 years from now I sell, there are 45 years riding on it, is it the buyer that has to opt in to extend? I have to assume it would be the buyer. That sound right? Why would that be in my interest to want to extend the additional 10 years at that point as the new buyer? I truly don't know why it would be, and therefore,
I see.
how are we effectuating this tendency toward perpetuity? It would seem that once we get to the end of the 55 years, that's when somebody's going to want, in order for it to remain in, because otherwise it just rolls out, and whoever happens to be in the property at that point no longer has it encumbered by the limitation. And so if we want to keep it at that point, we're going to be forking out more money in order to keep it in. 'Cause I don't know otherwise how it, unless you run some kind of a factor, some kind of a net present value factor.
I was going to say a
for
depreciation.
somebody at 25
Yeah.
years or something, and I mean, it's just, I'm trying to figure out how.
Well, if you amortize that over 55 years and look at a depreciation schedule, maybe you can come back to it, something along those lines.
Right, yeah, I just don't know.
Other than altruistic purposes.
Which is first and foremost in people's minds when they're buying property.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, we can continue to do more analysis on that and different options that could go with that.
Okay, all right. I mean, whatever we can do, obviously, and the longer the better. I'm curious, though, Karen, we have plenty of deed restrictions through our conservation plans, all the rest that run in perpetuity. Why is it different with this?
The conservation easements under the statute are allowed to run in perpetuity.
Okay.
So it's very expressly stated in the legislation. There's this arcane rule that everybody who goes to law school has to learn and hates called the rule against perpetuities, which states that you can't have something, a deed restriction, unless the legislature has enacted law to allow it to go in perpetuity, like the conservation easement. You can't have it run it forever. 55 years, if I'm not mistaken, is what is currently under most of the affordable housing deed restrictions is the amount of time, which is, I think, why it was chosen in this case.
Okay. So then if we are going to move forward, we might want to have a provision in each one of our restriction acquisitions here that if state law is changed to allow perpetuity, that this rides with that property. Because why wouldn't we want our legislative platform to include something like that?
And frankly, it might be something that our lobbyists would look at in terms of, because the interest is in affordable housing. And
Right,
the
that's
legislature
exactly what I'm
is to
saying.
look
Why
into
wouldn't we
this.
include that in our legislative platform?
Right, exactly.
And I will add that if the property is set to automatically renew with that deed restriction and a new buyer comes in, one benefit is that the new buyer is getting that house probably, if we go by Vail's learning lessons, that new buyer is getting that house at about 15 to 17% less than the market value of a similar house on the market.
Right, that part I get.
All right, I have just one comment, I think, and I would concur with Cindy that I would want us to focus on first the new buyers. I think that's really important. And I think, I don't know how you do it, but I know that we don't have a cap on income levels, but I do think we need to look at prioritizing which group of people that, or how which houses we're doing this with, right? Because if you have all the executives and the doctors at a local hospital, but we're not helping the folks who are working at the ski resorts or the teachers or the firefighters, then that's a concern. And I don't know how you do that, but we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that's just not benefiting folks who have higher incomes. So I'm not quite sure how we do that, but I think that's really important.
And do you mind if we, could we use up to the 205% that TRPA is using as kind of our, again, a priority test program for the first year and going to the 205, because that's what TRPA is using as a potential?
Yeah, we
See
could.
what kind of demand we get, and then we can adjust at the board level to say, okay, we haven't received, or we
Yes,
haven't spent.
absolutely. We could structure a phase one of this program with certain criteria
Yeah.
or restrictions and see how that goes, and then potentially open it up or change it in future phases.
Great.
Because I wasn't sure if Bonnie knew that TRPA was using this threshold of 205% of AMI
Okay.
as trying to get to a broader discussion of workforce housing,
Yeah.
achievable workforce housing.
That might
Achievable
be
housing.
Achievable, yes.
All right, let's go ahead then. We'll open this up to the public, and we'll see if we've got some calls on, or comments on Zoom.
No comments on Zoom, so we're going to shift to the phone line.
Oh, we are using the phone line? Okay, we are using the phone line. No comments on Zoom, so we'll take public comment.
Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record.
Oh, is this for me?
Yes. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, Chris Hager, Tahoe City.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. This comment was intended to dovetail with a general comment that I'll be making tomorrow morning. But concerning this proposed program, in my opinion, it does not effectively and efficiently address the legitimate housing needs faced by our community. I believe, and if the county were to prioritize housing issues, as I'll recommend tomorrow, that the single most important thing that needs to be done to address the legitimate housing needs in our community is the construction of more units. These should primarily be multifamily rental units serving low and moderate income earners and the development needs to be compatible with our existing communities and needs to likewise be compatible with other legitimate concerns such as appropriate siting, VMT considerations, and making sure this is distributed throughout Eastern Placer communities. The proposed program does nothing to achieve this. I also have trouble squaring the proposed program with several other observations. First, it seems to me that the county has inadequately pursued the low-hanging fruit in addressing housing issues such as changing regulations to make building easier, one of 4 areas identified in the county's housing work plan. Instead, the county seems to be spending scarce funds because it is both easier and more visible. Unfortunately, that does not mean it is more effective. Second, 2 years ago when the county felt they had an opportunity to pursue the purchase of property in the area for housing development, there were inadequate funds and the county had to scrounge for outside funds of under $1 million. Yet now a $3 million annual program is being proposed. Efficiency is the key idea here. I believe that $3 million annually could be spent in far better and more effective ways when it comes to address community needs regarding housing. In fact, I propose, here's an idea, that this money be made available to any and all developers as per unit cash subsidies for new construction of deed-restricted units. Doing so would actually contribute to addressing our housing issues, and I believe it would make a rather substantial impact. Based off the information provided to the board, I believe the program, as currently conceptualized, is problematic and does not effectively achieve the stated ends. In particular, because of the lack of restrictions concerning eligibility, the proposed program amounts to a free money giveaway that will not necessarily alter or preserve workforce housing. For example, I see no reason why every multifamily rental unit in Eastern Placer wouldn't participate. Apartments are already and forever will be, regardless of the program, workforce housing. Similarly, and this echoes comments from Supervisor Gustafson, there are plenty of homeowners who would be eligible for what amounts to free money since they have no plans on moving. Supervisor Gustafson, my professional hiring neighbors, and my friends who bought their house decades ago would all be eligible for this free money. So long as they plan on staying here, as many of them do, there really isn't a compelling reason not to participate in the program. This amounts to free money giveaways which accomplish nothing for the community. And a final 2 points. First, just because someone else did it doesn't mean it's a good idea. Second, beware of unintended consequences. There are potentially huge implications of this as it concerns what the county can reasonably charge as an in lieu fee to developers. That is, if a deed restriction can be purchased for, say, $60,000, and this is equivalent for development purposes to an in lieu fee, then it is quite clear that the in lieu fee can't be more than $60,000, or I believe about half of what it currently is. 2 more comments in light of the discussion thus far. Considering the comments of Supervisors Gustafson and Gore about restricting the program to new purchases, which would seem to me to target homeowners, and I may be mistaken there. But why would you focus limited financial resources, and a whole lot of them, on high earners when the biggest issues concern low and moderate income earners? The second comment, the 205% of AMI criteria that's used by TRPA that Supervisor Gustafson mentioned is based on highly flawed data and is very problematic. When people understand this, there will be outrage. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please.
Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record.
Is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
Hi, this is Shauna Doherty with the town of Truckee. I'm the housing program manager. Thank you very much for this opportunity to comment, and thank you for the presentation, Emily. I'm here today as one of the partners in the development of this program. We have been in lockstep with Placer County staff in researching and looking into the viability of this program in our region. Though it is not by any means meant to replace the need for low-income and moderate-income apartments, we see that the strategy that we need in the region as well in Truckee is multi-pronged. We need to be addressing our housing challenges, both leveraging the funding that comes from the state that gives us the tax credits for the affordable housing that Truckee is seeing specifically We have 200 new units coming in that will be available next year. In order to start to serve some of the more moderate income, even in the 100, anything above 80 AMI, we have to come up with these types of solutions, whether it be rental or for sale. We don't know for sure if this is going to work, but what we do want to do is try, and we have seen it work in other areas like Colorado. Will it work here? We're not sure, but again, we want to keep trying. Town of Truckee is a little bit behind Placer County in that we need the funds in order to be a partner in this program. We are currently putting forward a TOT measure that will go to voters on November 3rd of 2020 that could raise an additional 2% of TOT from the 10% right now to 12%, which would create approximately $700,000 per year for necessary community services such as housing and open space and fire. So should that be passed by voters on November 3rd, we want to be ready with being able to partner on this program. Let's see. What we like about this program is that it is the only program that, other than the down payment assistance, that really serves those trying to get into the market. I think one thing that people forget about this is that it does lock down and preserve the units that we're losing to the second home market. So yes, it does provide funding for first-time home buyers to get in, and even if we decide to move forward with paying existing homeowners for the deed restriction. What we have to remember is we're trying to increase the inventory of homes that are here for our first-time home buyers. So thank you very much, and I look forward to this program moving forward.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please.
Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Emily Vitus with the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency.
Go ahead.
Hi, Supervisors. Thank you for listening to me today. As Emily mentioned, I'm with the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, and we are a newly formed public agency with a mission to provide increased housing access and affordability for the employees of our member agencies. And our current member agencies are Tahoe Forest Hospital District, Tahoe Truckee Unified School District, Truckee Delano Public Utility District, and Truckee Tahoe Airport District. We've been following the development of the Workforce Housing Preservation Program and received a thorough update from Emily at our June board meeting. As most of you know, there's been a major shift in the Tahoe Truckee market recently, making housing even less accessible, which is of great concern to us. Our member agencies employ nearly 1,800 essential workers, many of whom already struggle to live near where they work. We are in support of this program, any program that helps our local workforce access secure housing at below current market rates. We recognize that this is just one of many solutions we need to work on together to develop. We look forward to collaborating and participating in the program once it is up and running, and we urge the Board of Supervisors to act swiftly with the program's implementation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please.
No more callers.
All right, no more callers. We'll bring it back to the board. Any other comments, thoughts, input before Emily wraps up? You have what you need?
I do. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the hard work. And we will now move to item 3A, which is the proposed amendment to the North Lake Tahoe Economic Development Incentives Program. Hi, Jennifer. And
Hi.
as Jennifer stands in front of us, I'm going to speak clearly. This will be your last presentation to our board.
It is. Can you believe it?
You are going to...
I haven't counted how many I've done, but I'm sure it's dozens.
A few, yes. So we'll say some comments afterwards, but thank you for... I'm glad you're here, and thank you that you can be here in person, and thanks for your work on this program. So with that, we'll let you do your final presentation before our board.
How exciting for all of us, I'm sure. So yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board and staff. Jennifer Merchant with the County Executive Office. As I get started on this presentation, I do want to recognize Paul Griffith, who is sitting right behind me to my left. He and I have been working a lot on this together. So while I'm presenting, it doesn't mean that I've done all the work by any means. He is oftentimes the brains of the operation, especially when it comes to the real estate market and financials and working with our business and developer partners. So I do want to give him a shout out here and make sure he's recognized for his hard work on the program. So let me move forward. Okay, great. So just very quickly, this item was presented to your board on March 10th. Then we got some feedback from you. You asked us to come back in June. We did that on the 23rd, accepted additional feedback from you as well as community members. And that feedback focused on program flexibility. So we made sure that we retain that and beef that up a little bit. And that's what we are presenting to you here today. So this came out of the original BAE analysis that was done at the end of last year, finalized this year, that really talks about the challenges in the Tahoe Basin market and including the regulatory context. And they did looked at 4 different prototypes and determined that only one of them was feasible, and that was a condo product. So we wonder why there's no new hotels in the Tahoe Basin. It's because it just doesn't make financial sense for somebody to make that kind of investment. They made a variety of recommendations, including a TOT incentive, and that's one of the main things that we have focused on here. So we received a lot of feedback as we went out to the public. We went to many business associations, people who have developed in the Tahoe Basin, people who have bought property and not developed in the Tahoe Basin, et cetera. And so we did an extensive outreach effort, received a lot of feedback from those groups. We also went to the North Tahoe Regional Advisory Council and got feedback from them. And I don't need to go through it all because you've seen this slide before, but this is the feedback that the folks we spoke with provided to us, and really these concepts and notes are what the program was built upon. So why are we focusing on hotels? Because of the significant challenges and because there are opportunities with hotel development. We know that people who invest, or excuse me, who stay overnight and stay in hotels spend more money than they spend when they're staying in a short-term rental. They spend more money than they spend, certainly by a far amount, than those who come for a day visit. And we presented that data to you last time. I will add that some of the challenges in the Tahoe Basin market include competition from outside of that market, including Squaw Valley and North Star, and even the town of Truckee, which is really growing by leaps and bounds. And you see the changes in the town of Truckee, both based on the lodging development there and the retail development, and their population is increasing while ours is decreasing, as Emily pointed out. We've got a lot of challenges in the Tahoe Basin market. So just a reminder that our research did include looks at other agencies with similar lodging programs, and we kind of compare ourselves here against some of the other programs that we saw in the state of California. And we're, I'd say, maybe a little bit more aggressive than some programs, about the same as others. We're really trying to maintain that flexibility in the type of lodging that we are trying to attract, or improvements we're trying to incentivize, because we have needs from the lower end of the market all the way up to the 5-star resort market. So this is new. This is a slide of the Tahoe Basin area plan boundary. You've seen the map before. I wanted to point out, because these are the areas where the program would be eligible. So you see the town centers in red, and there are actually 3. Even though we talk about Tahoe City and Kings Beach, there is also a town center at the state line, and there is an old motel there that may be used for housing, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility that it could be redeveloped as well, especially maybe in nexus or concert with the Calneva project. And then you can't really see it on this map, so I'll read off the names of the community so I don't miss any, but there are stars on that map kind of buried in mostly the blue and red there, which is why they don't show up well. Those are also the village centers where this project would be, this program would be eligible for lodging as an allowed use in those areas. And that includes the village centers of Tahoe Vista, Carnelian Bay, Dollar Hill, Lake Forest, Homewood, and Tahoma. Am I missing anything? Sunnyside. How could I miss Sunnyside? I love Sunnyside. Okay, so why focus on the Tahoe Basin? I had this question from a couple people between the last presentation and this one, so I thought it would be good to really highlight the significant investment barriers in the Tahoe Basin that don't exist elsewhere. So in addition to some of the challenges that were mentioned on that previous slide, we've got the barriers here, the extraordinary cost to enter the market, the land cost being the first thing that somebody runs into. I'll give an example of a property that changed hands several years ago. It is now proposed for development as the Tahoe City Lodge. Excuse me. The value of that land right now with nothing on it is $4.8 million. With an existing developed hotel project in the Auburn area, the land value, according to the assessor's office, is just over $400,000. So you look at that land value from an undeveloped piece of land in the Tahoe Basin to a developed piece of land, and to be clear, that's only the land value of that project. You know, the building and other amenities on site bump up the value of that land much higher. But the first step, your entry into the market, is very much greater in the Tahoe Basin than it really is anywhere else in the county. And then you add to that some other barriers that exist in the Tahoe Basin, and maybe outside of the Tahoe Basin, but certainly not elsewhere in the county. That's the cost of construction, your shortened season, the access to labor. A lot of people are coming up from Reno, so they command a higher price because of their longer commute. Sometimes you can't get all the materials you need. You can only develop certain portions of the project during certain seasons. Then you've got the environmental review process with TRPA. It's multi-tiered, complex, that doesn't exist anywhere else, even right outside of the Tahoe Basin. Excuse me. And because of that multi-tiered complex process, it's a really long process. You're lucky to get in and out for a hotel project, new lodging, in 5 years, which is, you know, all that time you're holding that land cost. And then the project mitigation, because of the environmental regulations, can also be quite expensive. And then your return on investment is not even as great in some cases as it would be elsewhere in the county. We do see hotels springing up out of the ground in Colfax, Roseville, Rockland, here in Auburn, and those properties have potential for a stronger year-round season. So that's why we have recommended focusing, at least in this initial effort, in the Tahoe Basin and not outside. So I've got some highlighted sections here, and those highlights mean those are the new components. So the recommendation from BAE, and then your board, rather than going the ordinance route, said let's just amend the program to add the things that were recommended by BAE. So there are 3 program components. The infrastructure cost offset existed in the North Lake Tahoe Economic Development Incentive Program that we had on the books already. We also had the tourist accommodation units included in that program. So what we've added is all of the other TRPA development rights, including residential, coverage, commercial floor area, and then also density and I believe coverage also are available only in Tahoe City, related to our participation in the purchase of the Tahoe City Golf Course. So there are development rights on that golf course that would be eligible for people only in that Tahoe City community plan, or excuse me, area plan town center at this point. And then I'd say the biggest feature of the new program is the TOT incentive, and that is where we would be offering a rebate for new and renovated development based on the schedule in the next slide. So you've seen this already, so I don't know if I need to go into a lot of detail. I do want to point out that the staff report and the incentives program document that was placed in the board package isn't 100% correct. The tables are right, but the verbiage in the staff report isn't correct. I've sent an updated piece, but I think I missed the deadline for that. So what is correct is what you see here. And actually, you know what? It's on the next slide. So the incorrect thing is related to the renovated, not the new lodging anyway. So scratch that, I'll get to it next. So sorry about that. What we're showing here is a sample project that could exist in, let's say, Tahoe City or Kings Beach or even the state line. So with 100 rooms, with a $200 a night average daily rate, 60% occupancy, and these are about estimates that we think we'd see with a moderate project. At our current 10% TOT rate, we would be providing a 90% rebate for the first 4 years for new lodging, 80% for the next 4 years, and then 70% for the remaining 12 years. That only gets up to the feasibility gap, and that feasibility gap would be determined by a third-party economic analysis, similar to the one we did for the Tahoe City Lodge. So we wouldn't be looking at their books. There would not be public access to that information, but a third-party trusted source would identify what that gap is, and then they would get that rebate for that term at a maximum amount. So it's not that they get it forever, and they wouldn't continue to receive the rebate beyond that gap number. So in this example here, under the long-term dollars, they would be receiving $8 million, and at an 8% discount rate, that amount rebated back to the developer would be 3.9%. Okay, this is the one that isn't right in the verbiage, but correct in the table. So this is a sample concept for lodging renovation. And the information for Tier 1, so a $100,000 to a $250,000 renovation project, shows that it would yield a $76,000 rebate, TOT, based on the schedule you see, the percentages over 7 years. And then for Tier 2, 90, 80, 70% for a maximum of 8 years, up to $232,000. I do want to point out here that we have this potential hybrid project. So we really we're talking with developers and trying to figure out what the right target was for larger renovation projects. And it became clear that while they were renovation, because there would be existing lodging on site, they were really probably more like new development projects. But we reflect that here because we know it will probably exist. So renovation projects larger than $500,000 in building permit value, we would look at on a case-by-case basis. And I think that it's probably going to take some conversation back and forth with the developer of a project like that. But we know that to really bump your room rate and to really make a significant difference in your TOT revenue, you're probably spending more than $25,000 a unit. So we may even look at a per unit cost. We're guessing that that's about the right number, somewhere but over 25 up to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a unit, depending on the kind of renovation they do. But there's such a wide array of potential project types, we didn't feel we could hone in on it in a simple table like this. So we left it open and flexible for negotiation as a project would come forward. And then we felt it was important for your board also to understand the potential revenue from this program, because it does seem a little counterintuitive potentially on the face of things to provide somebody with a rebate and still yield a public benefit out of that. And Kirk, I want to point out for you, we did go back and double check the numbers, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that they were right based on a 22% tax rate area, which is about what you'll see in the Tahoe region, as low as I think 19% in Tahoe City, and then it goes up higher in some of the other communities, and really kind of depends on all of the multiple districts that we're allocating the property tax revenue that we generate to. So Under this, a 22% return to the general fund. If somebody's paying currently $10,000 in property taxes with a $50 million project, we would be seeing $110,000 new dollars in property tax. And then once the rebate term is over, we would be receiving a significant amount in TOT growth, $650,000 estimated in this scenario. And even during that rebate period, because we would be receiving 10% of that money back, we'd be receiving just under $44,000 per year in transient occupancy tax revenue. And then we have some other recommended program modifications. We ran these by you at the meeting on the 23rd and got some feedback and made some minor adjustments. We focused in on a 6-year program sunset with a review every 2 years. And if we're meeting our goals, potentially, your board says, we can stop the program. We don't need the program anymore. Or perhaps your board says, well, let's modify the program in these ways or extend the program for a longer period. So we thought that would be a good period of time, kind of in the middle of what we see with other programs lasting as long as 10 years, and giving your board the flexibility, or a future board the flexibility, to make changes as necessary. So we would be requiring all projects to meet the overarching criteria that's listed under that first bullet there. And then these are the rest of these things are really just kind of program sideboards that we discussed with you last time. Getting close to the end here. So for next steps, we'd want to accept any other public feedback from your board on finalizing the program document. Once it is final and clean and all the typos are gone, we will post that on our website, and the Economic Development Department will support the Tahoe CEO's office in promoting it to existing lodging property owners and also lodging and mixed-use developers to try to incentivize some more development and investment in our communities. I do want to point out that there are some steps in here that were recommended by BAE that are probably under the ownership of the Community Development Department, and they're working on some of these things that will be back to your board in the coming months. And that includes easing parking requirements in the town centers and village centers for lodging development, also potentially easing workforce housing requirements that you'll be seeing in the next couple months, and then some process improvements that they're working out of the Tahoe City office. And ready for questions or board consideration.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate
Thanks.
it very much. Questions? No questions right now. So why don't we go ahead and we'll move to public comment. And we don't have any Zoom, raise your hand if there are any public comments. So raise your hand if you want to make a comment on Zoom.
Samir, go ahead and give your comments.
Try that again.
Samir, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Good afternoon, Samir Tuma, Tahoe City Lodge. Thanks very much for the opportunity to comment on this item. I'd say this item and your previous item with respect to housing are probably, from a business perspective, probably two of the most important initiatives that the county is working on in the basin. And so I want to congratulate you for that. This program is needed now more than ever. Jennifer touched on cost of construction being very high and higher than it is in other places. And she mentioned that there's going to be a notification that prevailing wage may likely apply. I will tell you that based on all the research we've done and with council for new projects in any event, prevailing wage is going to apply. And so it's going to be, there's going to be a cost associated with that. But I think the flexibility that's built into this program is intended to deal with that excess cost as well as close the affordability gap. You know, one of the things that we've been hoping for years now to try to solve with our projects and others is to try to mitigate against the bad reputation that the basin has for redevelopment or new development. and it's something where a few projects in the past have really soured the investment community. And so hopefully this will be another incentive that will help us get past some of that reputation. And finally, I think, as you know, there's still a lot of uncertainty with COVID-19 and what that means. But I will tell you the one thing that is certain right now is that the capital markets that feed into development are definitely taking a pause and evaluating the situation. But no matter what the outcome is, at least for the foreseeable future, capital is going to be more expensive than it was before. And so having a program like this that can close that gap doesn't assure that projects become affordable, but it certainly goes a long way on that front. And having the flexibility with the 20 years in calculating what the gap is, I think is a process that makes a lot of sense. So I fully support the action today, and hopefully see it approved, and perhaps we would be one of the first to apply. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Any other commenters? All right, nobody on Zoom and nobody on the telephone, so we'll bring it back to our board. Supervisor Gustafson?
Thanks, Jennifer. Great job, Paul and Jennifer, on this, and really appreciate all the work that went into it. Obviously, it's very challenging to do new development, whether it's housing or hotels or any other sort of new construction in the Tahoe area. So appreciate that. We had received earlier an email, I did receive an email earlier about why not a larger section of the county applying to this. And I think you covered that well. And I'm not opposed to it being broader in the future, but right now trying to focus on the goals of the town center development, where we know we have a shortfall of what our vision is and what we're able to deliver, should be our first priority. But I would just say on the record, I'm not opposed to programs like that. The difference is, at least in North Tahoe, we still have that extra 2% on the TOT, in addition to the obstacles that you've talked about. So they're actually producing more revenue for the county's general fund already through that initiative. So just thinking through how we might make it appropriate to other areas of the county if it works. We don't know yet if this is enough to generate what's needed to get a hotel built up there.
Yeah, and I think one thing I might add is that we've done 2 studies about what it's going to take to attract the kind of investment we want. We've also had the tourism master plan and other market studies to figure out what do we want. We have a Tahoe Basin area plan. So I think, potentially for future such programs, we might consider looking at, what are we trying to get to, and then what are the market things that are standing in the way of that, so that we can figure out what might work. So if there are other areas, I know we did receive some feedback about the challenges that even the North Star and Squaw Valley area are having. And, I think that's something we need to consider, and what is the number of beds you need for the kind of product that is on the mountain or being proposed for the mountain. But looking at those kinds of studies so that we can answer those questions and bring back a solution potentially to your board or for elsewhere in the county as well. I think that's probably the first step I would recommend.
All right. No other comments from board members, so we don't need an action. You got the direction you needed, or do we need an action? We do need an action. We need the proposed amendment. So anybody want to take action or move approval? Second. Wait, I can't. Somebody else has to.
I didn't realize it was for action.
Okay, so action by Supervisor Gustafson, second by Supervisor Holmes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then Jennifer, just before you step down, we do want to say thank you for all of your hard work, all of the years that you have worked here at Placer County. And
you're welcome. My pleasure.
Certainly wish you all of the best as you move forward to your new endeavors. And if anybody else wants to say anything, but really do appreciate your hard work.
Thank you, Bonnie. It really has been a lot of fun. I mean, it's a job that I thought that I would never leave, so didn't expect that. Okay. kind of bittersweet. I love the community I live in and the place I work. But, you know, I just feel like sometimes you just know it's time to take a step forward, and I felt that time was around the corner, so decided to be proactive about it and found a great position in a great place on the Sonoma coast, which I'm really looking forward to. But I'll miss all of you and the work here.
Great. Supervisor Gustafson?
Sure. Thanks, Chair Gore, for giving me a few minutes. So try to get a tissue.
I know. It's okay.
I've known Jennifer since she was a Cub reporter at the Tahoe World, and then was part of the team that pushed her to become a field deputy for Mike Flutie after my departure and after Steve Teixeira.
I remember that well.
Yes, and we won't say what establishment we were in, but it is no longer open during COVID right now. But it was a bar without food. How's that? But moving forward, then you went on to the Chamber of Commerce position. I got to work with you there, and of course at the TMA for your stint there before you came to the county in 2004. Did I get that right? 2005. And so 15 years with the county, and through that time, just looking at all the things you championed for the county in our area was just tremendous. And I think about the Kings Beach Commercial Core project and the sidewalks there that I just drove through on the weekend, and the traffic wasn't that bad, everybody. It really wasn't. The artwork was beautiful, and you were such a champion on that. The community house, and your service there, all of your work with TRPA and the regulatory agencies, and of course even with our own county, making sure people remembered how important the Tahoe area is to all of the residents of Placer County. Building the housing program and being really the instigator of the Mountain Housing Council and being starting that, and obviously purchasing the Nahas property. I know one of the earlier callers was not thinking the county's doing much in housing, and I think about the challenge of actually stepping in and purchasing that piece of property for a vision to get housing done for our community. And just working over the years on the development incentives and now this TOT incentive program. So I'm sure there's so many more things, Jennifer, but
it's a heck of a list.
Thank you. All of those accomplishments. And then on top of that, for those of you who don't know, Jennifer also volunteered time in our community, served on all kinds of boards and committees, volunteered for Tahoe Women's Services, as I recall,
way back.
and the community house. And the establishment of the community house and the campaign to do that as well. So, and those, I mean, I'm sure you did more than that, but
I can't remember it all, so don't worry about it.
Really a legacy of service to our community in many aspects, and so thank you. Your dedication and passion and commitment to the residents of Eastern Placer County and all of Placer County is really appreciated. So, and I'm so excited for you. The coast is great.
I'm looking forward to it. No snow there.
Yes, enjoy.
Supervisor Wygant?
Jennifer, I'm not going to reiterate everything Cindy said, that I lived through almost all of that personally myself. But I'll just say that I'll add that when the landscape up there was always confusing to me at different times, I could always give you a holler and seek your perspective, and you're always very candid and straightforward with all of that, so I greatly appreciate all of that and wish you the best of luck and hope you stay in touch, and it's been a great ride. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
And Supervisor Holmes? Yes, Holmes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's Holmes. Still.
Who are you? What am I doing here?
Jennifer, it's been said what you've done over the last 15 years in the Tahoe area is unbelievable. Just steady, hard work, and I appreciate it. And as Supervisor Wygant said, I appreciate your candid and forthright. When you explained things to me, it was very easily understandable. And you worked hard to bring in staff, Emily and Aaron as well, that do a great job as well. So I wish you well, and I will miss you. Thank you.
I'll miss you too.
Oh, Supervisor Euler.
The only thing I want to add is that Monday nights before Tuesday Tahoe board meetings will not be the same without you.
That's a good addition.
Thank you very much for all your good work on behalf of the county.
Thank you, Sue.
And for just being fun to hang out with up there.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer, very much.
Thanks a lot.
All right. And we'll now move to our 3 o'clock time item, which is item 4A, which is the urgency ordinance, to temporarily extend the alcohol ban on portions of Truckee River. Hi, Erin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Erin Casey again with the County Executive Office. I just briefly, as Jennifer's employee, I would be remiss if I didn't just make a very quick comment. She
doesn't
left?
get to hear you.
She'll hear it. I told her not to leave. But I did want to mention that, and I think Supervisor Holmes, you were alluding to this. I think for somebody who's coming into a job, particularly to an organization, in my case, that you have no familiarity with. I came from the nonprofit sector. I had no government experience really to speak of, and to come into this organization with somebody like Jennifer as my supervisor has really allowed me to grow in this role in order to really serve the community, serve your board and the leadership here. So I think that speaks well to her also in fostering leadership within Placer County. And I'm very grateful to her for that opportunity to personally to develop professionally, but then to also be given the opportunity to serve the broader community. So I'll make sure I say that to her in person later since she's not in the room at the moment. And with that, I'll go ahead and move on to this particular presentation on the urgency ordinance in front of your board today. Quickly just provide an overview, just a bit of background on the existing alcohol ban, recent impacts from coronavirus that are specific to this particular issue, a little bit of detail to your board on recreational rafting on the Truckee River, some health and safety impacts related to that, feedback, and then board action. A little bit of background on the alcohol ban. Back in 2008, on February 5th, in fact, the board approved Resolution 2008.27, which was requesting state legislation to ban alcohol on portions of the Truckee River. Specifically, the stretch that we're speaking of is just below Fanny Bridge to the River Ranch along Highway 89 or State Route 89. Senate Bill 1159 was then sponsored by Senator Dave Cox at the time, which authorized your board to oppose an alcohol ban on that particular stretch of the Truckee River during summer holiday periods. And those summer holiday periods would be designated by your board. The next item is tied to that. Your board was to then pass a resolution that would specify what those dates were, and that was a requirement as a result of the sponsored bill. Your board at that time chose 4th of July holiday, specifically dates through the weekend of 4th of July, because that was the time frame that was problematic back during that period. The urgency ordinance in front of your board today would actually expand the definition of that summer holiday period to be July 27th, 2020 through October 15th, 2020. A little bit on COVID-19 and increased day use. I know your board is quite familiar with these items here, so I'll be very brief in covering this with you today. On March 4th, the governor enacted a state of emergency in response to COVID-19. On March 18th, then issued a stay-at-home order directing the closure of most businesses and limiting travel in the state. Despite that order, recreational day use activities have continued in North Lake Tahoe, and I know you heard a little bit about that earlier. This is another example. The recreation on the river is another example of that continued use in the community, and particularly in this case, that day use. You heard a figure from the Resort Association. I think it was 42% of the visitors that are coming to our area are in fact day visitors. So this is related or connected to that type of visitation into our area and the increased numbers that we have been seeing over the last several months. Rafting on the Truckee River, it's very popular. There are several stretches that are popular for it, and the stretch I referred to earlier is certainly one of them, from Fanny Bridge to River Ranch. There are 2 commercial outfitters that are permitted by Placer County, and currently they're voluntarily reducing their boat capacity by 50%. They have to, or in many cases, transport the rafters from River Ranch back up to where their vehicles are. So part of that reduction was to ensure that people could safely sit on the bus, maintain physical distancing. And so I think that's important to know when characterizing for your board the increased use and the increased number of people on the river at this point. The remaining rafters are private. These are individuals that will purchase their own tubes, their rafts, flotation devices, get in close to the bridge and just float down the river. The number of private rafters is significantly higher than previous years due to those commercial reductions, and this has resulted in public health and safety concerns. Many people are driving up to North Lake Tahoe. I think, as many of you know, people aren't flying at the moment. They're driving to destinations to recreate, in some cases staying overnight, but in our case, many of them are coming up from surrounding areas to enjoy the area for the day. And one of the most popular activities that we're seeing right now is, in fact, rafting on the Truckee River. So this, I hope, helps to demonstrate some of the public health and safety issues that are of concern. The photo that's on the right was actually taken several years ago when your board approved the resolution in 2008. So it demonstrates, or it shows, the number of people that were on the river at that time. The picture on the left was taken 2 weekends ago. And so we're seeing this occur not only around holiday periods, but every weekend, and in many cases, several days a week. So we have really seen unprecedented use and an unprecedented number of people recreating on the Truckee River, congregating in certain areas, like the area you see on the left. So no physical distancing there, no face coverings, et cetera. And as a result, a lot of concern in the community related to public health and related to this particular use. Addressing the issue, that's what the urgency ordinance is intended to do and what's in front of your board today, specifically requesting that your board designate that summer holiday period to be July 27th, 2020 through October 15th, 2020. We are actively working with our agency and community partners to develop river-specific signage. I spoke to your board about signage that we've been developing with the Tahoe Fund, our public utility district partners. We're taking that partnership and we're expanding it to develop river-specific signage in some of these key areas and hotspots where people tend to get off their rafts or congregate in areas, hoping that that will provide or at least provide some guidance. We also placed a portable message sign, one that we had purchased with Squaw Valley. Squaw Valley provided that sign to us last weekend. We placed it in one of the areas where people congregate, encouraging people to continue down the river, asking them not to congregate in those areas. So trying a variety of different approaches, not just relying on one to try to solve the issue. Feedback and other considerations. The commercial outfitters, the two that I mentioned, have in fact been consulted and they expressed support for this amendment. The U.S. Forest Service was also consulted prior to making the recommendation, as was the Placer County Sheriff's Office. The Placer County Sheriff's Office does enforce the existing ban over the period of 4th of July weekend, and that role would continue moving forward. We don't anticipate that there would be significant increases to the workload. However, Placer County Sheriff's Office would monitor that and would return to your board as needed should additional staffing or funds be needed to support this effort. And then finally, the requested board action is in front of you here. The proposed ordinance would be effective immediately. And I did also want to make your board aware of two corrections that need to be noted for you. The first is section 1, or excuse me, the first is the 7th recital, and we've added, and by the way, these corrections have been made already, we've added of after amounts, and then section 1 only should have been stricken out, not apply. And so some minor differences, but wanted to point those out to your board, make sure you were aware of those. And then finally, I also want to clarify that you would be adopting this urgency ordinance during a special meeting as opposed to a regular board meeting. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that your board may have on this item.
And Karen, you've got a clarification?
Yeah, just to follow up on what Aaron just said. Under the statute, we cannot adopt a regular ordinance on a special meeting. However, urgency ordinances are accepted. That's why we can, if the board so chooses, adopt an urgency ordinance on a special meeting.
Thank you. Supervisor Euler, questions?
Yeah, so why are we really doing this?
Why are we really doing this? Is that a question? Okay. I do think that we are trying to address the issue that I pointed out, the number of people that are recreating on the river and congregating, and doing our best to balance what we have been doing, which is working in partnership with our agencies to encourage people to behave differently, encourage face coverings, encourage physical distancing. And I think this is an attempt to support those efforts by sort of adding an additional component to that. In addition to the signage, really hoping that in doing this, it will encourage those who are congregating in these cases. And honestly, many of them drinking alcohol, we're hoping that that will support the other efforts that we have moving forward.
But this action today is simply to ban the consumption of alcohol on the river through the remainder of the summer season.
That's right.
So if the problem that we're trying to solve is too many people rafting at one time and getting together, why don't we just shut down the rafting, the commercial rafting, if that's really the problem we're trying to solve?
Yeah. We had this conversation about shutting down rafting. We actually talked about this with the Forest Service, in particular because they own the adjacent land to the river. The concern expressed there, and I'll say this was expressed too from our partner agency, the Tahoe City Public Utility District, that is, in shutting down some of our public spaces, we're simply pushing that pressure to other locations. And so there was a concern that in doing that, we would just be taking the problem that we have and putting it somewhere else in our community, which we've seen happen in other cases where we've tried to restrict public land access or recreation on specific sites.
So conversely, we think that if we tell a group of young people that you can't drink here, but gee, you probably still could drink over there, we don't think that that's just going to redirect where they're doing the drinking and socializing anyway? I mean, I'm trying to be realistic about this, and my first reaction is, how do we, with a straight face, pass a smell test of calling something an interim ban when we're banning it until the middle of October? Because there's not a whole lot of rafting demand on or about October 15th and in the days following. So essentially, we're saying we're banning alcohol on the river.
Through that period.
We're calling it interim, but let's be honest. If we're going to do it, we're doing it all in. And when we did it before, back in 2008, it was in response to the behavior that is subsequent to people consuming too much alcohol that we were having to deal with, as opposed to the behavior associated with the consumption of alcohol, which might be people getting together. I mean, I don't know what problem we're really trying to solve and why we think banning alcohol is going to stop people from engaging in certain behaviors otherwise. I'm also not a fan of calling this an interim. I mean, we're really being asked to ban alcohol for the remainder of the season. And I just...
Yes, and
if I could, just to clarify...
And as somebody who might have had one or two beers on that river at some point in my life, particularly in my 20s,
as did all of us. The interim is not related to the ban period. The interim is stating that we're only amending this ordinance on an interim basis based on the urgency period. So it's different little nuance in the interim.
Do we have any evidence? I know Dr. Sisson has talked about our contact tracing and all the rest. Do we have any evidence that we are seeing alcohol consumption on the Truckee River leading to large spikes in coronavirus transmission? Is there any evidence that we've seen of any of this?
No, and in talking to, we had a lengthy discussion about this, actually, 2 discussions with partners, including the sheriff and the PUD, is that what is happening is it's become like one big party. And people are congregating, they're littering, there's been a lot of fights going on, which the sheriff is, and also the rafters were mentioning, that instead of just having your party time originally in July 4th. It's become party time every day of the week there. And they are seeing more fights, they're seeing more trash.
Okay.
And that's actually what this is
Which is
designed.
fine, but that's a separate conversation. Let's not hide this under the guise of trying to reduce COVID-19. If we got people, tearing things up and
Right.
scaring away families and all the rest, that's a different conversation, but
Well, and I think, the COVID discussion here is simply the backdrop. Not the, it seems to be symptomatic that people are coming up to Tahoe, to the river, getting out, trying to recreate, and it's become symptomatic, at least what I heard during these discussions before we drafted this, that this getting out and party time is creating these other problems, and that's what this is intended to solve, not the COVID.
and our sheriff really thinks there's no additional time or expense requirement in enforcing this stuff? Is that really what we're hearing?
Well, speaking with the sheriff, I think he basically said, we currently do enforcement right now. We're not going to necessarily ramp up enforcement
Yeah, but they're
in that
doing
area.
enforcement of people who have gone beyond where they should be,
Correct.
as opposed to checking every raft for beers or something. I mean, that's really what I'm trying to get at, is what level of enforcement are we really talking about here?
I think they're going to evaluate it and take a look, and if they need additional staff, they'll speak to that at a later date. But right now, I don't think there was any inclination to add additional staff or, more folks doing the enforcement. We'd probably do education not only with the rafting companies in terms of not people, we want them to move down the river safely, and they can't bring alcohol when they're going on. So, I think that's fine with the rafting companies. I think it's going to be more of an issue for folks that are stepping on the river on their own.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Wygant.
What has recently the hospital capacity issue been up in Truckee?
I think the capacity's been pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
fine, I think. I didn't look at the numbers this weekend, but our caseload has been.
They haven't expressed concern at this point in terms of capacity, and it seems to fluctuate in terms of the number of beds they have available. And to Supervisor Gustafson's point, I haven't read the recent numbers, but based on the calls I've been a part of at this point, the Tahoe Forest Hospital District has not expressed concern in terms of their ability to take additional cases, specifically those COVID-related cases.
Yeah, so I appreciate Kirk's comments. I've been and have expressed how troubled I've been as it relates to policy around COVID, which is specifically supposed to be just to make sure we have adequate medical capacity to deal with the issue. So I'm going to leniently make a leap that because of the COVID circumstance, drinking when you're rafting down the river is causing more public protection issues, not COVID issues. And I think locally we need to more and more start having straightforward discussions about actually what the COVID policy is and should be, and be focusing on questions like, it is even smart to be decreasing the rate of spread because these constraining behavioral policies put in place by the governor really could just make the circumstance that we're in last literally for years, if depending on the assumptions you make about when the spread is going to stop and why it's going to stop. So more and more, I think we need to have much more targeted and specific conversations about COVID and policy and all of the ramifications and implications that all of us are having to deal with regarding that in and of itself.
Supervisor Gustafson?
Sure. I appreciate both of your perspectives on this, and you certainly have a lot of history up here and were influential in the original ordinance. I think it's not related to the spread of COVID as much as it is to people driving and staying within California on their vacations, not having school in session, not having sports programs in session. So many, many families, and I keep talking about this, the high visitation levels are creating a lot of crowds. And for the last month, I've been working with the Forest Service and others. What can you do to limit crowds in certain areas? Because we're getting overuse. We're seeing more garbage, we're seeing more nuisance. The parking along in River Ranch, I mean, I've never seen it like that along both sides of the highway. I've had calls from the ski area saying, way to go, we've got to do something to try to limit, the impacts and the erosion and all the other issues. So I think COVID and the policies around COVID have driven behaviors that this can help address. Both rafting companies not only said yes, they said please do this, because the customers they rent to are customers that are with their families and often don't want to be around in a big crowd. They may want to stop at the island, go to the restroom, dump their garbage, and they don't feel safe getting their kids out with the party scene that's going on. It really does look like spring break. I mean, I'm just too old, so I can't go. So. But it is a pretty massive input, and we do think, in talking to the sheriff, I mean, they are not willing to just ask people to keep moving along or anything related to face coverings or physical distancing, but they are willing, in talking to them, to try to push toward more direction to those who need help, moving along down the river and not congregating as long and partying as much, because truly that's what's happening when they stop. It's a big party.
Yes.
So there's no other reason to stop at that particular, or at both islands, and other than gather with others. And there's, if you look at the picture that Erin showed, you can see that almost 50% of those are other types of plastic toys, which I know from my past career get thrown away at the end of the journey, or left in the river, or left on the riverbank. All those inner tubes, it's the commercial rafters are the only ones providing cleanup, providing restrooms, and really helping. Otherwise, the public rafter, or the general public, and those inflatable toys on the left side, I mean, those often hit a rock and they're gone, and then they just either go to the bottom or are thrown on the shoreline. So it's a significant concern. So no on spread, but the impacts of the policies the state has put in COVID, I think and the concern people have about traveling is pushing more visitation. So
yes, and to that point, I think, and related to the length that we're talking about for the summer holiday period, generally in mid-August, visitation starts to drop off in North Lake Tahoe because people are getting ready for the school year, they're heading back, getting their kids ready, and in this case, with the possibility of our schools going to remote learning again, distance learning, we're likely to see people spending more time in Tahoe for a longer period of time. So that visitation season for us is likely to extend quite a bit until really the weather dictates whether or not people want to actually get in the river or not. So that's a part of the thinking here, also in terms of the time frame in what's proposed in the urgency ordinance.
And this age group, I would say in general, is about whether colleges are back in session or not, right? That is a lot of the demographics from observation out there.
All right, thank you. Why don't we go ahead and open this up to the public? Got telephone calls? All right.
Caller, go ahead and state your name for the record.
Yeah, hi, this is Sarah Lowitz. I'm calling from up in Tahoe City, and that is actually my photo that you posted up there. And that was just an average day. There's days it's better, and there's days it's worse than that in terms of the crowd. And I just touching on everything Cindy just repeated. Of course, she lives here, she knows, and has just described what's going on. But I'm also a nurse, so I wanted to address some of those questions about hospitalization and in our area what's going on. Both Barton and Tahoe Forest Hospital, when they start to get close to filling or have, can you hear me? Yeah. They are able to transfer their patient loads down to Reno. I work at Renown, which is our trauma hospital, and we have been so busy that we've actually had to go on divert.
Sarah, can we have you turn off the audio in the back? We're getting an echo as you speak.
Yeah, it's actually the audio from your meeting, so let me just turn that off. Hang on, there. Can you hear me now better?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So as I was saying, what happens for the local hospitals, both in South Lake Tahoe and Truckee, so that they can preserve some of their availability for outbreaks locally, they are putting more and more patients, not just respiratory, but any accidents that happen in our area. They punt down to our hospitals, primarily Renown in Reno, because we're the trauma hospital. So we are bursting at the seams there and having a lot of issues. We've even had to go on divert, which as a regional hospital is pretty much unheard of. In terms of the COVID caseloads in the Tahoe, North Tahoe region that we're talking about, that crowds like you're looking at in those pictures can potentiate, I'm sure you've all talked about this previous to this coming to your board. The concern is that the day visitors, when they gather in those groups, can then go back to where they're from, down in your western part of the county or otherwise, and then any exposure they've had, of course, has the chance to incubate and possibly become an outbreak and add to the numbers that are growing in your region in the western part of the county. So as you've just described, this potential issue here on the river is not only related to COVID and potential hospitalizations and outbreaks, but the general behavior that Cindy just described leading to issues that the sheriff then does have to address. But mainly I called mostly just to try and address a couple of the questions you just posed related to hospitalizations in Tahoe Forest Hospital and the general tracing that we have here. Back this spring when we talked to Dr. Sisson in one of the Zoom meetings about contact tracing, specifically because here in Tahoe we have day use visitors and people that come and go. How do we do tracing? And at that time she was saying she just is hoping that people are going to use the Google or Apple apps for tracing. So the COVID part of this equation is half of the equation, as you kind of outlined with Cindy's explanation there, but it is still part of the equation. The porta potties that are available at these sites are limited, and of course there's no hand washing available. So it's not only COVID that's the problem, but in the area of 64 acres where there's literally hundreds of people filing through as they do the staging for their rafting, hepatitis is also something that you can get exposed to in these kind of numbers with limited sanitation. So it's just all in all, a way to try to mitigate a host of things by this proposal of an alcohol ban. And I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please, or we're no more calls.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll bring this back to the board. And any further discussion? Or motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt an urgency ordinance, temporarily extend the alcohol ban on portions of the Truckee River. I won't read the whole thing.
Second by Supervisor Wygant. All right, we'll go ahead and take a roll call, please.
Wygant?
Yes.
Holmes?
Yes.
Euler?
No.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Gore?
Yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate the work.
Great work, staff.
And with that, we are going to move to our closed session. We need to offer public comment for closed session. All right, so if we do have public comment, we do have a number of letters. So all of you who wrote letters, we do have a number of letters for item B, 5B. So we did receive those, and they're sitting in front of us. Do we have callers from closed session? No. All right. So then we're going to close public comment for closed session, and County Council, if you will report.
The board will now adjourn to closed session to consider 4 items of existing litigation, 2 items of potential initiation of litigation, and 1 item of real property negotiations.
All right, thank you. Doesn't work.
The board met in closed session to consider 4 items of existing litigation. On each of the 4 items of existing litigation, the board heard a report and provided direction. The board then considered 2 items of anticipated litigation, specifically initiation of litigation. On one item, the board heard a report and gave direction. On the second item, the board heard a report and asked that this matter be continued to tomorrow, 7/28, and closed session. The board then heard a report on real property negotiations. After hearing that report, the board concluded it did not want us to proceed further with the real property. This concludes the report out of closed session.
And with that, we will adjourn to our meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m.
This will put you good in.